more of a bond. Like,
Cool.
That's, I feel like that's the best way to summarize it.
And what can you now say about, what was your name?
Neelam.
What can you, Lila, nice to meet you. Neelam?
Yes.
What can you now say about Neelam as a result of having watched her from afar?
Neelam is a not so serious professional, and I like that because I'm a not so serious professional. Like, I'm wearing a Looney Tunes tie, like, you know, like, so, so she seems like somebody that would be approachable and engaging in profession.
So that's what happens online when you witness people commenting back and forth, when you see people showing up, and thank you both for that, that was very valuable, that you see people showing up in a lot of ways. So when I say it's important to maintain an understanding of what your values are and express them at all times, that's why, because people are watching. Whether you know that they are or not, they are watching. Whether you feel safe or comfortable with that or not, they are watching. Yes, sir.
What's going to be my observation was you were competing for our, judgments.
Okay.
Because you were on stage and you'd introduced something relatively new to her. You had the advantage of knowing kind of the game, and she had to compete hard to perform. So,
Okay.
yeah, I see the connection, but I also see the externality of it all, and the fact that, we're all in this room and we're watching this, and you were on stage.
Cool, and that's one of the reasons I don't perform anymore. There is a competition in theater that is innate, that when you want to show up and be noticed, there's a lot of pressure on what that looks like. There's a lot of pressure on what I physically look like. There's a lot of competition. It's very interesting to me that you were able to see that, not having, I'm assuming, like a deep experience in the New York theater scene.
No, that's just how I felt.
Yeah,
I couldn't
and
quite
that's
see,
what it is.
I couldn't quite see her,
Neelam, yeah.
but did she end with something that was kind of cute?
Yeah, she did.
And so I no disrespect intended, but I thought you were trying to be cute.
I was actually not trying to do anything, I was just playing a
Just
game.
playing.
I didn't actually realize I was supposed to be having a conversation.
But we had fun.
Yeah.
And we did have fun, and that's the other part of it, is that it's only worth competing if it's really fun.
But there's something to be said here. So we may not be speaking words, or
Yeah.
it's not a language, but there's body language, and there's nuances. So you might think someone's behaving cute or silly or whatever the words are. And that's the interesting about communication, because it's not just about language, is it? Really?
Right.
Yeah,
It's
it is.
how we don't even need to say anything.
It's
we
about
can tell
the
a
way.
story.
It's also interesting that someone who was sitting here had a different experience than someone who was sitting there. Anybody ever play the game of telephone? As kids, everybody. Anybody not play the game of telephone? So I'll explain it. In the game of telephone, if I'm the first person to play, I write down a sentence, and I, am very clear on what that is. I fold it up and I give it to the last person in the line, and I would pass around that information by whispering it in her ear. Tell me your name again.
Mira.
Mira. Okay. Can you spell it for me?
M-E-E-R-A.
M-E-E-R-A. Okay. So Mira would get the message from me. I would whisper it in her ear. Probably she would get that and repeat the same message to the next person. And then, what's your name?
Dave.
Dave, I'm Lila. Nice to meet you.
How are you?
I'm great.
Good.
So Dave is going to hear the message, and maybe he'll hear it perfectly, or maybe there's a noise outside that distracts him, or maybe he has a different context for whatever that word means, and he's interpreted it somehow, and it changes a little bit. So the farther away you get, the more diluted your message gets, which can also be what happened here. You can see her, you can see how happy she was to be playing in this moment. So yes, it's competitive in some ways in performance, but it's also very connective. And it's that dichotomy in the industry that is like it'll push you away and then suck you back in, and then push you away and then suck you back in. But most of the time it's about playing and connecting and just having a good time. And the people that you end up having a good time with are the people that you refer to other jobs. Like, oh, you're casting for this part of like Hippolyta, the Amazon queen in Midsummer Night's Dream. I know this beautiful tall woman who looks very exotic, who's a great performer. And I love being around her, so I recommend her for the role. So it's just about that personal, like, who do you like too, and that does get people opportunities, which is also what personal brand does. Who you like to be vibe with, those are the people that you refer first, whether they're the best or not, and of course you are, you know, obviously the best for the role of Hippolyta in Midsummer Night's Dream. Yeah, I know, and you've done so well. But it is something that can happen. So how do we make sure that our message doesn't get diluted to the point where no one will understand it? Let's say you leave and talk about what you witnessed to somebody who wasn't even here. You are now my only chance of having an evangelist. I have to be so clear in my communication at all times so that when you go and talk about me, I still have opportunity from the people that you meet. You go out and you talk to somebody about what you saw happen here today. It better be really clear that Lila seeks to connect, to affirm, and to empower, and that I will take the time to do that. So whether that's your experience or not is up to me. I can't ultimately control what happens or what you feel about me, but I can do my part and I can take my responsibility for my end of my communication. And that's true of any communication event, which is what it sounds like at the time period in which you're communicating with one person or one group of people. Communicating right now to you, this is a communication event. If I'm just talking to Mira, this is one communication event and you are the audience. But you are my intended communication partner. So there might be things that I've picked up from Mira that now I know, I'm mirroring your body language right now. I'm just kind of relaxed and sitting comfortably, making eye contact, which you are so good at, and just relaxing and settling into my voice so that I don't put you off. Whereas like if I were to switch to Carrie, I could be way up here, and you would totally get it. And this would be like exactly right. So she's my new communication partner. I deliver communication to her in a way that is invigorating and amusing and loving, and that connects us in a way that she will be comfortable with. So thinking about who you're talking to also will affect which parts of yourself you share, and in which moments. Yes.
Sitting as someone from this part of the room, speaking on behalf of this side of the room, I did notice, I think I know what Dave was talking about. There was one number that was kind of challenging to you. And there was a pause on your part where you were trying to figure out how to take it. And I think that you were both collaborating to get the attention of the room. But I could see that being interpreted as being kind of competitive as well. But you were kind of competing for our attention, I think.
Did we get your attention?
Absolutely. That
did we get your
number,
attention?
it might have been 6, I don't know, but it was.
And did we get your attention
Well, I
too?
think that you're articulating it very effectively, and yet you got the attention of the room because of our feedback. So there was a group, jitter, or whatever the right expression is, when you guys were going through this. And I think you felt that, and therefore you wanted more of that. You
Yeah.
wanted more of that feedback, that laughter. So that's where I sensed the competition. And it resulted, sorry, what's your name?
Neelam,
Neelam?
yes.
It resulted in Neelam doing something that kind of was quite bodily at the end that we all really laughed with her at. And that's why I felt it was competitive, because she did that in order to, and it's nothing wrong, it's not actually everything right, in order to get us, to validate her.
Yeah, whether we realized it or not. We were playing in a way that for sure was going to, the spotlight was on us, this was our moment, and we were having a show together. And whether it reads as competition or not, we got everybody's attention, and we had a good time.
Yeah. I know, may I just say
Yeah,
something?
we did
Because I
too.
know this is about, we're talking about communication and how to say things. Well, I didn't have any sense of competition. I was actually playing with creativity.
Can
So for
I
me,
clarify? I mean, like competing with our devices, competing with our preoccupations.
Oh, okay.
Like you were collaborating with each other, I felt, to engage us. And so I was pulled away from my work because I actually did have to slip away and do an
that's
email.
cool.
And I think I was distracting you, and I think it was everyone, we're trying to get back into the afternoon session. I think you were competing with not each other, but the room, for.
And you're one seat closer. So your experience is different. So just wanted to bring that up again.
Yeah.
Because my observation is, and I want to hear what your observations were as someone in between, but here was the interaction, and I was very close to here. This is where this communication event occurred, and you were all the audience. And this is why if you can spring for the good seats in a theater, you should do that in addition to supporting the arts. But it's also why good directors bring out those intentions in their actors so clearly that the person in the back of the house, in the back of the balcony, gets what the point of the story was.
I just wanted to share my experience being very close. So my experience was like completely different. My takeaway was more so that like, wow, you can have, like I saw a whole conversation in that. And I was like, you can have a conversation without words. It's like your body language presence, the way you're saying the number, like the eye contact that you're having, like all these things that say so much about you and your personal brand, and that's what you're communicating in that exercise. And that's I guess what I took away.
Cool. I want to hear from you, and then Julian, and then Yash.
I think what I'm finding most interesting is the feedback from the audience, interpreting the meaning of the heroes or the actors. And I think this is something that also happens in social media, where, you know, instead of social media just being a window for us to see other people, it becomes a mirror where it reflects our interpretation of what they're doing. So half of our reaction is our interpretation of their meaning. And it becomes kind of a play, you know, especially when you have like you start scrolling through the answers and the discussions there. Then it really diverts from perhaps the original meaning of the message into something
Whatever
different.
people need to get from it. Yeah.
Then the crowd becomes, instead of a spectator, a participant.
Yeah.
And the moment that happens, it all moves. So this is something that is natural to happen. You don't have it in theater except of the moments that you maybe clap
you
or
do.
laugh
Yeah.
or, you know.
I mean,
You
I think
can
you do.
feel it, but
Yeah.
it's not intentional. You don't, as a spectator, if I go to the cinema or to the theater, I participate, but it's still passive, would you say, versus a very active participation in social media.
Yeah, and people on social media get very involved in other people's conversations all the time, right?
Isn't this kind of similar to what Dr. Brandon was talking about earlier about people like judgment and how like that's the number one thing, like people are afraid of judgment and things like that. That's what happens. Like as communicators, if we go out there, people are already making so many assessments and judgments. Meanwhile, we're just playing a game.
Right, but you know what, let them,
Yeah,
right?
so-
So that's the other thing. You can only control so much of what other people see, what they get from you. Maybe today Mira's right here, and tomorrow she will be back there. Where is it, Daniel?
David.
David, sorry. So David, you might be here, you might see something different. We're not always gonna be in the same seats. And we're not always gonna be seeing things through the same lens on social media. We're not always gonna be seeing things through the same proximity, whether it's online, in person, at events. So that's why consistency, giving that same kind of intention, those same values that you express actively through all of your communication are so important. Because if somebody feels like you're competing once, and they're sitting over there and that's what they got from it, fine. If they see that you're competing 9 times out of 10, that's what your personal brand is. If they see that you're competing 1 time out of 10, and the other 9 times they see you're very collaborative, you are affirming and connecting and empowering, that's your personal brand. So give people the chance to see you as many times as possible by showing up as many times as you can as exactly who you are. You cannot control what other people think about you, but you can control taking responsibility for the things that are important to you. So it's important to me to connect, and it's important to me to empower, and it's important to me to affirm, so that people know whatever it is that they have to say, I find that valuable. Whoever it is that they are, I find that valuable. And what they bring to a conversation, I find that valuable. And I know that there were some hands, are there still?
Yeah, I mean, someone else before me.
Oh, I mean, I don't know whether it's funny because again, everybody saw a conversation, and what I saw was again also different, and it was as sort of each of you described it to me. In other words, what I saw is you trying. It was almost like a conversation talking past each other. You were trying to have a conversation. You made a little sort of gesture as if, you know, how are you finding the conference? That's the way I read that part
Yeah,
of that.
that's what it was.
Whereas Neelam was trying to convey a different kind of emotion each
Yes.
round.
I didn't know that was the game.
Yeah, exactly, which is exactly what you said, but that's exactly
And we
how
don't
I
always
saw it.
have
I
the
didn't see
rules,
the
so,
conversation.
yeah.
I didn't see the conversation. It
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
exactly, you playing it the way you said you saw it,
Yeah.
and you trying to have a conversation.
Yeah.
I see the contacts being different as well, because you both have.
Sorry, can you speak up? I want them to be able to hear you too.
Because you both have an experience with like improv and things like that, your contextual experience would be different than someone that doesn't have an experience like that. So maybe the way I communicate with you, because we're friends and we had a connection before, it's okay. But someone listening to it and say, oh wow, that was a rough conversation.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
I have that a lot. My husband is Canadian, my family's in Brazil, and sometimes I'll be talking to my parents and I hang up and what happened?
Right.
Nothing. Like, we're having a party. What? Like, you sound like you were so mad. Oh no, I was excited. But it's the context. He doesn't understand the language, the way I communicate is different. So I think having that connection and the context about who you're talking to makes a big difference.
Yeah, it does. And I've seen that a lot. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. The way that we talk is very confrontational sometimes, but that means we love each other. Like, if I can mess with you and like mess up your hair when I see you, or like push you off into the pool, or whatever, that means that like we get along, right? In other cultures, that might be very aggressive or seen as like attempted drowning of your friend. So it is totally, I totally get that. And that's interesting too, to bring up, that your context in the conversations that you have online, in your companies, with your communication, if you are aware of who the full audience is, it might change how you decide to show up, depending on what you want to get, what your objective is from a communication event. So if Marcella's on the phone with her family, she doesn't care if her husband, hears. But I'm wondering, and I want to ask you, if when you are in a professional meeting with you work in medical, right?
Yes.
So explain to me like what a situation would be where maybe if your family called you, you would communicate differently with them on the phone in front of who?
Yes. Well, you're more spontaneous, you're a lot more enthusiastic, but if I was like, picking up the phone now, okay, I would speak slowly and I would speak more quiet.
Why would you do that?
Again, I guess my context, like I am not in a context that I want to get attention to myself, and if I start speaking with my parents the way I would at home, everybody's going to look at me and, oh, it gets attention, I don't want attention, so I'll quiet down a lot more.
Why is it important to you not to get that kind of attention here with this group?
Because it's not the focus, like everybody's paying attention to something else, I'm removing myself to this context, so I don't want everybody to be removed with me.
Okay, and why is it important to you that you not be the one to take people out of this situation?
Because I think they're here for a reason, it's respectful to them that you're here to listen to something that is not me.
Cool.
So
that's your value. So it took like a couple of questions, but we got back to what your values are and how that dictates how you communicate. Even if your communication partner is the people on the phone, you are actually in a communication event already, and we are your communication partners. So the way you communicate is to us, even if you're talking on the phone. I have to go, I can't be on this phone call right now. I want to respect these people. Thank you for understanding. Right? You do it that way because we are your communication partners, because it's important to you that we know something about you, and that's your value, like to respect people in this situation. You've expressed that through communicative action, to respect, to honor, and to engage. I'm putting this away and I'm engaging here. So those are the verbs that I hear from that hypothetical situation. And that happens a lot. So I want to just give you a little bit of background and take you through the 5 steps of Say Things Better, so that you know a little bit more about how this stuff ends up happening and how being more intentional about it can help you be more consistent and keep those values showing up when you need them to, and even when you don't realize you need them to. It becomes innate. It becomes something that just makes you an effective communicator when you are always focused on the beginning and the end of this method. The middle parts are flexible depending on what it is you're doing and who's around you. So the first part is super objective. It's spelled the way it sounds if you want to take notes, or you can just look up hashtag Say Things Better on LinkedIn, and all of my content will come up and you can look at it then. Nothing that I'm saying now is so far removed from what I've said online, so you don't have to take notes unless something hits you that is relevant to you right now in this moment. Just so relax, or take as many notes as you want. If you take notes on your phone, that's fine with me. If you take notes on paper, that's fine with me. if you like write things on your arm, you know, in Sharpie, I'm honored, you know, but don't, it's not good for you. So super objective comes from the Stanislavski system. He was in the 40s and 50s a major catalyst for the humanistic and naturalistic theater movement in the United States. He was from Russia and brought all of this over so that the people here who were creative during a time of communism and sameness and valuing the whole rather than the individual, radically, from Russia, brought this individualistic idea that everybody's driven by something that means something to them. And whatever it is that we go for, whether we know it or not, is in service of this big, great goal, something that is at stake for us. There's going to be a different reason for each one of us. So, what is your name in those stripes?
Jacob.
Jacob? I know so many Jacobs, and one is my brother, so you can be the next one. So Jacob, if you feel like you show up to a communication event, what's at stake for you if you communicate effectively or you don't? Like, what is it that that keeps you behaving well?
Well, you create connections. If you don't communicate well, you're going to lose that opportunity.
What does that opportunity mean to you, to have connections?
You know, on many different levels. It could be friendship, could be asking for support or maybe advice.
So friendship, support, and advice,
It could
why
also.
would those things help you?
Pardon me?
Why would those things help you? Friendship,
Well,
support,
finding a
advice.
new job, for example. You
Great.
know,
Why would you need a new job?
my supervisor's here right now. I'm kidding. And so I'm not looking for a new job. Why would I need a new job?
Let's
I
say
don't know.
your job just disappears.
Sometimes it's you know, location. I might move, so that would be one.
What would make you move?
Family situation, for
Tell me
example.
about your family.
My family. I'm originally from Poland,
Okay.
for example, right? No, not for example. I am from Poland. So, so my whole family's back there, right? So that's one. Another reason could be, I don't know, money. Like I'm not.
Why do you need money?
To survive, or
Why
to
do
be
you-
happy, to have security,
Okay.
to also have pleasure in life, for example. Right?
Okay.
So depending on how I value money, what's how I want to
So
use
if
money.
you don't have money,
Yeah,
what's at stake for you? Pleasure, freedom, flexibility.
security, lack of security.
Lack of security.
Yeah.
So maybe you are driven by that security.
For example, yeah.
For example,
Mhm.
it might also be, I want to bring honor to my family. I don't know what your dynamics are, but it could be for somebody else. I want to bring honor to my family. I want financial security so that I can live a life of freedom and flexibility, which are values of mine. I'm feeling very alarmed. That's the other side. So in Poland, this
Yeah.
is why you're here, right? It's the alarms. The fact is that you're driven, consciously or subconsciously, to do well at work because you don't want to risk the things that are really important to you. Those things that are really important to you, that's your super objective. I know that it's very important to me to empower a world of super communicators and connectors. If I don't do that, what's at risk for me is legacy, and you heard about that from Alexander Michael Gittins this morning. If I have no legacy, I am forgotten, my life has meant nothing. I'm driven by that every day. So it's maybe a big thing to think about, but I think about it all the time. And I've personally experienced the opposite of that, which I can share. There's a story that I put in a video yesterday on LinkedIn, or you could just go look at it. But being on purpose with my communication and connecting, affirming, and empowering others, those are things that I do at the fifth step of this method, because at the very top, I'm driven by my super objective, which is to empower a world of super communicators who connect. And for you, the thing that might make you accountable to make sure that you do use all your tools to communicate effectively is what's at stake. I want to live a life of financial freedom and flexibility, so that if I need to be there for my family, I can be, so that I can live a life that's comfortable, whatever those so that I cans are, that's your super objective. The thing that's the very, very final piece of that. I want to do this so that I can. I want to do this so that I can, and I want to do that so that I can. When you can't say that anymore, you've reached your super objective. The end so that I can whatever is your ultimate stakes. The things that really keep you present when you're communicating, and the things that keep you accountable to your own values. So things that are valuable to you are flexibility, stability, comfort, and just from this interaction, I'm going to tell you that you've made me feel comfortable. From the moment that I stood up here, you've been present with eye contact.
Even earlier, actually.
Yeah.
You entered the room and you said hi.
I saw you, and there you were.
And I responded, yeah.
Immediately made me feel comfortable. You made me feel stable, and you made me feel grounded in that moment. So, because those are your values, whether you intended to or not, they show up. And if your values are to stabilize, to ground, to welcome, to support, any of the things that I got from you, I want to tell you that you were effective in that. So thank you for being that person and for showing up with your values in action just before you even said anything. I knew exactly who you were, and I knew that I could come to you for right now, for this moment, because of that. So thank you for showing up with your values so obvious. And it makes sense that that's what drives you. Those are the things that you put into action. The second step, past super objective, is objective. What do you want right now? What do you want to get out of this? I want to get a room full of people who are going to go on LinkedIn and write me recommendations about how awesome I am. So I need to show up and give you